Are we playing chicken to see who hits live first? Shortest podcast, 1.1 seconds.
That would be terrible because then you can't just go back live again. You have to
create a new show.
Reboot it all. Yeah.
That would be terrible. Man, this feels new.
What feels new?
Hey, we had our 1 year, around this time.
Yeah, I was thinking it was September, but it's been...
Well, Facebook is really good at reminding me, and or Meta is really good at reminding me.
August 12th.
Was our first episode?
8/12/2020 was season 1, episode 1.
Well, we made our page or whatever.
Yeah. What is all this about, and who are these guys? We had our trunk or treat Sunday night. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Was it fun? Did you guys have chili dogs?
Treat Sunday night. We did. We had a little.
That's awesome.
A bunch of folks brought chili. We made some hot dogs. Had some cornhole out in the parking lot. Ping pong tables set up.
I am so bad at cornhole. We usually have good muscle memory, but not anymore.
Not anymore, huh?
Not anymore.
I like cornhole.
I like watching cornhole stuff on TikTok. Those people are so good.
Yeah. They are really good.
Well, we got invited by some good friends of ours and went over to their house and sat in the driveway and ate a slice of pizza. And then their son had one of those inflatable dinosaur costumes, which just made Sam's night because the dinosaur went trick-or-treating with us. And he kept saying, he'd be like, "Come on, Mr. Dinosaur, we'll go to that house next." It was his favorite. I think if you asked him, it was his favorite part of the night. So that was good.
It's awesome.
We weren't planning on actually doing anything because we had our trunk or treat the Wednesday before. He already had a load of candy. He got to dress up. He had a lot of fun. But texted us last minute and we were like, you know what? Let's do it. Why not?
Yeah, why not? Well, this is
fun doing it.
We usually have our trunk or treat on Wednesday night, the Wednesday night before Halloween. And it's always it's good, but it's kind of our folks. It's after dark. It's kind of late. This year, because a lot of the communities were trick or treating on Saturday night, it's like, hey, if we do it early enough, if we go from 4 to 6 or 7, then even the people in this neighborhood, we can overlap with their trick or treating if they're doing it on that evening. It's early enough. It's still light. So it had a lot better involvement, both from our folks and from the community. Good old Facebook advertising, man. It worked well. Had a lot of people came by and it's like, oh yeah, well, I just saw it on Facebook and thought we'd come check it out and see what it was all about. So, pretty cool. And had a good time. And I was home in time to see the start of the Cowboys game. So that's even better.
I missed the Chiefs game. I meant to watch it, but with everything going on, I forgot to watch the Chiefs last night. I don't even know if they won. Did they win?
They did win.
Oh, good.
They, Patrick Mahomes led them back in the late in the fourth quarter for a win. They needed it. Mm-hmm. It's been a rough little go for them lately.
I think they're 4-3, right?
4-4 now with the
4-4
win.
now.
Yeah. Yep.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
Well, hey, good morning, everybody. This is Behind the Beards, 1 hour earlier than usual, and with a lot more football talk than you're accustomed to hearing Aaron speak. So that has made my day.
I'm texting now.
That's right. That's right. You're a Texican. Well, hey, on Behind the Beards, we do our best to pull the curtain back and reveal some of the things that you need to know about your ministers and your ministry leaders. I'm Joshua Fowler, a preaching minister in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And my brother, my beautifully bearded brother, oh, man, I'm just a couple of weeks away from being able to grow this back out. It's killing me. Aaron Partlow, Longview, Texas, a fearless youth minister. Man, a lot going on in your world. We're here an hour earlier than normal, so
Early.
Aaron can take care of some stuff with his family today. So it was either, I guess, you abandon your family for a day, or we skip the podcast, or we go an hour early. So we decided to choose an hour early. Seemed
Yeah,
the best option,
I feel like I haven't been here for like ages. Like I feel
It's
like
been
a
weird couple of
guest.
weeks.
I'm a guest on Behind the Beards. Just happen to have a red beard.
Yeah, you have one laying around you can just whip on.
That's right.
Well, man, you just got back from vacation a little while back, man. How was the Pacific Northwest?
It was rainy and beautiful on some days, and it was a lot of fun, and it was good. So we had a lot of fun. You know, Lauren and I, sometimes when we go on vacation, like we just don't want to do anything. Like she wants to draw on her iPad, and I want to sit and just like disconnect from the world and not look at my phone or my watch or anything, and just bask in the not caring. And that's kind of what we did for 10 days. We just kind of sat around and chilled, played some games, had a lot of good conversations, shared funny videos, but just enjoyed each other's presence. We did celebrate Sam's third birthday, quite a few times, actually, like 3 times. But it was a lot of fun, and so he got to spend a lot of time with his cousins, and he was able to like kind of keep up and all that kind of stuff now. So he had a lot of fun.
3 years old, man. It does not. It doesn't seem possible for me. I'm sure it doesn't seem possible for you. It also doesn't seem possible that I'm having to pick out grandpa nicknames.
Right, Pappy.
It's just when the kids were born, everybody said, "Hey, don't blink, because before you know it, they're going to be grown and out of your house, and you're going to say, hey, where did the time go?" And it's like, yeah. But man, they're right. They're right.
We'll talk about God's timing. Sam has this really good habit of like, if he knows I'm stressed or something, or Lauren, or even if we're in a movie and we start crying because the movie's really sad, he'll come up to you and he'll say, "Don't worry, Dad. Trust God. He's in control." And I'm just like, what? Like, you're right. And that's crazy that you just know to like come and tell me that and say that.
Well, this is free. Well, I say that it's not really free, because this is going to come back. This is going to connect. Believe it or not, kids have a way of kind of bringing your stuff back to you, right? The good stuff,
Yeah.
and the bad stuff. Sometimes, like you hear them say things, and you're like, "Oh no, I know where you heard that, and I'm really sorry. I gotta watch myself."
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I was
the good
watching
and the bad for sure.
That's right. HBO has a series every summer called Hard Knocks, and they follow a team around, NFL team around through training camp. And Trayvon Diggs is a quarterback for the Cowboys, and they have his son
Ugh,
who's sitting
even
in
worse.
the stands.
Just kidding.
About
Sorry.
to- about to
I
leave.
know. I forget that you're a Cowboys fan. Ugh.
Yeah. No, so Trayvon Diggs is a
I understand
cornerback.
why
They're
you're so
in
tortured.
through training camp, and his son, they have a camera on him, and he's in the stands watching himself play one of the preseason games. And this little kid is like, go Trey, go Trey. You can do it. Believe in yourself, Trey. And it's like, this kid has heard this a time or two because now he's given his dad's encouragement back to him as he's trying to make the team. And this kid's probably maybe 6 or 7.
Right.
And it was just one of those moments you're watching and it's like, that kid has heard that, believe in yourself. And now here he is watching probably the guy that's given him that advice and he's giving it back to him. And I was like, that's a teachable moment right there. It's a moment we can use. And we will use it to launch into the podcast today because we're talking based on some conversations you and I have had over the last week and some of the ones that we've had, like maybe throughout our
Lives.
friendship together, is how do you follow your own advice or teaching?
Yeah. Totally true.
Don't really have a pattern or a map to kind of sift through this, but just to explore some things that are revealed in ourselves, maybe through our teaching, and then when people bring it back to you, it's like, oh man, and maybe share some stories when.
Not only that, but there's also like the whole. Usually, if I'm in the middle of teaching a series, like sometimes I'm going through that as well, and I'll tell a story later on that kind of explains that. But I mean, I've literally been there and been asked to teach a class on this topic, and it's exactly what I needed to sit down and study and read and trust at that time for me personally in my life. And so it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, one of the ways it hits me most frequently is through like premarital counseling. So we do counseling for a lot of couples, and a lot of them we don't even end up marrying. They have their own preacher, or church, or minister, but they're kind of locally, and we do some counseling for them, Heather and I. And we always do that together. And we have the same set of things that we go through. It's about 6 sessions, and we kind of just walk through some things that we have found to be important for them to realize and to be aware of as they start out their lives together. But as we're going through it, someone will always ask, it's like, man, do you guys do this? And it's like, actually, no, we don't. Not all the time anyway. And when we don't do it, we realize that there's some things, our relationship, not that our relationship is ever bad, but we really struggle. We argue a little more. We're a little more annoyed with one another. The things, things just kind of get on our nerves more easily because we're kind of on edge when we avoid this. And so those moments of counseling kind of remind us of who it is that we're supposed to be as a husband and a wife. And yeah, you can admit, no, we're actually very imperfect at it, but this is what we strive for.
Right.
And the ability to go and teach that to people kind of gives us a way to kind of turn around and re-implement that in our own marriage and our own lives. And it's sometimes it's rewarding, sometimes it's convicting. Sometimes you've had a big kind of a disagreement, and then you got to go sit down with a young couple, and you pull up that PowerPoint, and it's like, oh man, we're teaching on this today. Okay, I hear you, God. There's some things that you're wanting me to flip around, on myself.
Yeah, sometimes there's a time a long time ago. It feels like I talk to Lauren about this all the time, but we just feel like it was like a completely, like we were so different. Like we didn't have Sam, we didn't have cats, we didn't like have any cares or worries in the world. Didn't have Lauren's car was the nice new car, but I mean just a different life. But we were working. Lauren was working like 2 jobs and taking some classes in Washington, and I was working the youth ministry job, and we hit some rough times, we had some rough times, and I didn't know what our future was going to look like. We couldn't afford to live without Lauren's two jobs and my job, and we didn't know what was going to happen. My job was getting really rough. It was looking like I was going to get let go, and didn't know. I just, like, honestly, like, we were living in the unknown. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I had to find another youth ministry job, all that kind of stuff, that transition. And that summer, my last summer at Delano Bay, they were like, "Hey, we need to teach you. Not teach you. We need you to teach this class on asking God for wisdom and trusting in Him." That whole right out of James. Like, if you ask for wisdom, He'll give it to you, but you have to believe that He's going to give it to you. You have to teach that class. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And so as I'm studying this and as I'm going through this in my life, and I'm trying not to allow my life to seep into this lesson when I'm teaching these teens, because they don't need to know this. They don't need to hear this part. They just need to know that, like, this hits us too. Here I am telling these teens, you just have to trust God. And sometimes you have to blindly trust God. And even though, like, your life can be messy and it can be painful and there can be all of this badness that tries to seep in, trust in God. And I just remember teaching that twice and sitting there and going, well, I'm glad someone heard this lesson today, and it was me.
Right. Right.
Because that's what it felt like. And so, but there's a lot of moments where I feel like a lot of times I'm preaching to myself, or I'm teaching to myself, or, hey, I kind of need this encouraging lesson. So we're gonna talk about this, and we're gonna do this. I think a lot of times for a minister, or even a youth minister, sometimes I feel maybe more for a youth minister, but I think a preacher can feel this too. Is
Thank you for the
it makes
permission.
me. What's that? Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for the permission to feel that.
Yeah, maybe. Just hold on. It reminds me of, like, when you're a child and you go and you're gonna go swimming, and so you put your toe in to see if the water's warm or cold or whatever. A lot of times, like, a pastor or a preacher or a youth minister or something will, put their finger in the group, and you kind of figure out where you need to go from there. Hey, this is what I have seen. I know it sounded weird, but you kind of you look at your group and you say,
You test the water. Yeah.
You test the water and you say, hey, I think this is what we need to talk about. This is what we need to, hey, I see my kids struggling with this, or hey, I see the community struggling with this. So we're gonna spend some time studying God's word and see what it says about this, right? Well, a lot of times when I do that, I'm right there with them. Mm-hmm. It isn't this whole pedestal game where it goes, hey, this is what my church, this is what my group is moving through, and I'm up here. I'm Moses on the mountain. I'm looking down, going, man, you guys are terrible. I'm gonna break these tablets. I wish it was like that, because I wish that I was that pulled away, that I was that holy, But really, I'm down there, with the group, and I'm going, man, this is what we need to talk about right now.
Yeah, I think my go-to, like, response when someone comes in and says, "Hey, it shouldn't be difficult," but it's kind of hard to respond to someone who says, "Man, I really enjoyed that sermon. That really spoke to me," because one of the challenges is I definitely want to be sure that God receives the glory for the thing, and
Right.
yeah, part of it's not really meant for your enjoyment; it was meant for your conviction. But I understand the sentiment is they don't really know what to say or how to say it, so they're just going to say, "Thank you, I enjoyed that." And so my typical kind of a response is, "I'm really glad you got something out of it."
Right.
I preach to the mirror, and I hope it speaks, to the people, because ultimately that's really true. It's like, what is?
That's a good line. I'm gonna steal that. I preach to the mirror, and hopefully it convicts the people.
Right, and hopefully
good.
hopefully it speaks to other people as well. Because I
That's
hope
good.
that
I
if
just
I'm
say
going through
thank
it,
you. I
someone else
appreciate
is.
that.
I
That's a
know.
lot better.
I feel like that's a way of recognizing that we're all in this together. That I'm going through this as well. And I tell you, man, sometimes God uses some of the things that we preach and teach throughout the next week. And maybe reminds us over and over again that we need to hear it. I just started a sermon series on doubt. And I hadn't really thought about that episode in John the Baptist's life.
Oh
But,
yeah.
he's in prison. And
Prison?
he's probably about to be executed. And he sends a message to Jesus saying, "Are you the one?
Right.
Or should we look for another?" Right.
Right.
And it's this last ditch.
Did I put my
effort
chips on the right
That's right.
pile?
That's right. I went all in. Please
Yeah.
tell me we
I'm
came
really
up aces,
all
okay?
in.
And and there's that moment of doubt and uncertainty, and really really hoping for John the Baptist that he was in on the right horse,
Yeah.
and on the right Messiah. And I just realized, hours after I preach this lesson, I'm going home and I'm focused on the wrong aspect of what has transpired throughout the course of a day.
Yeah.
And as you and I spoke, it was like, you got to celebrate what's there and not be concerned about what's not.
Right. Yeah.
It's not you. It's not personal. It's not a rejection of you or your value or your identity. There's a lot of good things going on. Focus on the good things that are there, capitalize on it, and encourage what's present, because we do doubt ourselves. And then last night, I'm scrolling through TikTok, and you get words of wisdom from Chris Pratt. And he says, everybody wants to say, "Hey, you're perfect just the way you are," but you are not perfect,
Right.
and you're not
Yeah.
meant to be perfect. If you were meant to be perfect, then perfection is the goal, and you don't need God's grace for anything. God knew who you were when He created you. He knew your flaws, and because you are flawed, you get to receive God's grace. I was like, man, and then this morning, I hear this almost the same message from somebody else on a video, and it's like, okay, maybe this is something that I need to hear. How God kind of brings this stuff back to you and says, hey, all the stuff you've been teaching to people, don't forget to kind of put that into action in your own life, because has those subtle ways of reminding you where it is that you need to be reminded.
Yeah,
of what
it's
you
always
need.
amazing to me when you step on the shovel and it comes up and smacks you in the face, of God's word. It's amazing. And a lot of times, okay, this sounds really weird, but sometimes, like, when I hear it the most is when I'm, like, in the middle of my teaching. And it'll almost be like, I don't know how to explain it, but it'll almost feel like I'm watching myself and I'm hearing my class, and I'm speaking from the heart. I'm off of my notes, and here I am moving into something, and I'm speaking from the heart, and it's something that I need to hear, and it's almost like I'm preaching, like, legitimately to myself. And it's also that time that I see a lot of teenagers do one of these. They lean forward. They're connected. They're interested in what I'm about to say or what I'm about to teach, and it's amazing. But it's also hard. It's also really hard to stop and to pause, because I think this is where we find the line of hypocrisy, right? This is one of those places, where we can find this hypocrisy line, and we don't want to be. Caught in this. I know I just got a text. It's really bad. But we don't want to be caught, like, in this hypocrisy, like, and so
Right.
we have to stop, and we have to pause, and it may not even that we'll be caught, but it's that we'll catch ourselves, right? Like, oh man, I just taught a lesson on this. I just preached on this, and yet here I am. I just preached a lesson on not worrying and trusting God, and what am I doing? Well, I'm sitting here being super worried and not trusting that God is going to, guide us through this and take us through that moment. And so that's kind of like one of those fears, and that's kind of one of those things like that I wrestle with is hey, I just preach, I just taught on that, or what do I always say? I always say give people the benefit of the doubt. That's one of the most Christian things I feel like you can do is to give people the benefit of the doubt. And yet, here I am, jumping the gun, thinking the worst of somebody without even talking to them or hearing them, you know? And that's Satan for me. I mean, that's Satan for me going, hey, just forget your own lesson. It's fine.
Well, so there's a time and a place. We're always honest, right? But I mean, there is a time and a place for complete transparency, I think, in teaching and preaching. The biggest challenge I have is, everybody doesn't see my whole life. They don't see my life at home. They don't see the things that are in my mind and in my heart. They see the life that I lead, in a visible way at the church, in our community, the activities that we lead, the service projects we go on, the mission work, the preaching, the teaching, and they see my family in a public way, but they don't walk through the struggles of raising kids, teenagers, those kind of things with me. So I think they have an expectation of those who are preaching and teaching in a way where they don't see the challenges. And so a lot of times they're like, oh man, you guys are so good. The temptation is not the temptation, but the challenge is, how much do you allow people into your private sphere?
None.
And how much do you hold that for, your own private life? Because there is value in people knowing that, hey, we're just people. Am I a preacher? Yeah. Am I a teacher? Yes. But I have the same struggles that you have. That there's value in that closeness and recognizing that we're all walking this walk together. But at the same time, we should, as preachers and teachers, be a little bit further down the road, maybe as it comes to the recognition of what needs to be done. Maybe in the maturity of setting things up, even if we fail like everybody else does. There's an expectation, and I think a correct expectation of maturity and advancement in those things, even if we are imperfect at it. And so that's the line I find difficult to walk, is being a leader and an example that is still on the road. Because even Paul says, hey, I have not yet attained the prize. I'm living in such a way as to get it, but I am not there yet. Romans 7, he talks about he continues to struggle with temptation and sin, even though he's lived this life of sacrifice. And so that's a hard line to walk, because we don't want to be hypocritical, but we also don't want to, make people think that we are less than who we are as leaders either. I mean, because let's be honest, if you have someone who wants to kick a drug addiction, you don't pull them in a room full of drug addicts and say, all right, you guys, go figure it out. You're going to put someone in there that's walked through it, that's been through it, that has come out on the other side, that can lead them through that process. And sometimes that can feel kind of hypocritical. So that's really the challenge for me is that balancing act.
Yeah, and that's it's pretty crazy to try to live that balancing act. And so I think about all those lessons where I teach about, the importance of the pause, the importance of the stop, the importance of the wait, and the importance of the silence. All those moments that we teach and talk about, they apply even more to myself. Because when, I'm faced with a lot of decisions or a lot of reactionary decisions or anything like that, man, taking those moments to pause and to reflect and to really think about what the response is. Something that's really hard to do. is it's really hard to do. I think this is one of the hardest things for me to do is to go to sleep and respond to it tomorrow. You know,
Oh yeah. If you get the message or the
if you get the message in the evening, and I have to do it for like two reasons. One, because I want to create a healthy relationship where if you message me after 8:30, like then I probably, unless it's like crucial, or hey, there's a baptism, or hey, I need, like, this is life or death, I'm not going to respond.
I have off hours kind of a thing.
I have off hours. I got to protect myself. But then also sometimes, like, I don't need to respond right away, because if I do, maybe I just read it in the wrong tone. You know what I mean?
I will write a response and then I'll give it to my wife and say, "Hey, does this sound okay?" And what I need her to do is tell me what doesn't sound right, or what sounds snarky, what sounds cynical, and what just sounds downright mean. Because sometimes I say things that just sound mean. And so she'll start saying, "Well, I don't know if I would say it this way." And I'll find myself getting defensive. Like, she's like, "I thought you gave this to me because you wanted me to read it." It's like, "I did." It's like, "Do you not want my input?" I'm like, "Do I want it or do I need it?" Yes, I need it, but no, I don't want it.
Yeah. That's the truth. Like that's a really true statement right there. Thanks for being that honest. That's one of the reasons I use Grammarly is for emails, is because there's actually it'll highlight and be like, that's passive aggressive.
That's passive aggressive. And your whole email is highlighted.
Yeah. You need to restart the whole thing.
Yeah. See, my problem is it doesn't say that's passive aggressive. It would say that's aggressive, and you should probably not type that out. And
that's
send it.
unchristian. That's what
you
I
have
mean.
spoken your mind way too plainly on this. Do you have a source where you get this from the most, like where your teaching comes back to you?
It's usually my Wednesday nights. My Wednesday nights are more topical. They're more exactly what I kind of talked about, where like I kind of try to feel the group out and all that. And so that's usually where it comes back. It's rarely in a sermon, because I don't preach that often, and it's rarely on Sunday mornings, because that's more curriculum based. But it does happen. It does happen because the Spirit works in amazing ways.
Mine comes out most frequently at like camps.
Oh yeah.
And Wednesday night kind of has that same kind of feel to it, right? I mean, it's the folks that are there on Wednesday night are, they're there typically for a different kind of reason. They're a little more connected
and tired. And
yeah. I mean, they're tired from the just from the weekly, activities, and it's in the evening. But also, those are typically your people that are more receptive to anything that would transpire in a class. So,
right.
I have a way of bringing it back. You'll find this as your kids age, as you have your innocent. I know, but I'm assuming
Singular.
that there will. You're not going to be able to stop with just one. Sam's too good. He's going to bait you into having another one.
Yeah, that's how it works, right? And then that one's bad, and then you have to have a third
to see if you were to see if you're really a good parent or not.
That's
right?
right.
So this is the tiebreaker. Now, they when our kids are younger, out of their innocence, they bring about this image of God, and they reflect your teaching in different ways. Just like we were talking about, where he'll come up and say, "Hey, it's okay, Dad," or if they know when you're not feeling well, they'll kind of come up and they'll cuddle on you, and they do all these different things to remind you the things that you've taught them. Mm-hmm. As they get older, they're not so subtle. They'll just say, "You know what you said yesterday," and it's like, "Stop it."
Stop it.
I am your father, not your brother, not your friend. Do as I say, not as I do, kind of a thing. And sometimes you'll find I have found myself listening to usually Heather, and it's usually about grades or schoolwork or something, and I'm thinking, man, I am so glad they did not have Power School and these kinds of tools for parents when I was in school.
Right.
My parents knew my grades when midterms came out, and they knew my grades when the final grades came out.
Right.
Or if it was really bad when the teacher called, but the teacher didn't call unless it was like beyond repair. So, I could do my stuff, I could take care of my own things, and as long as it was good by the time grades came out, I was golden. Didn't want to bring any progress reports home. And I was talking to Dustin, and I was like, look, man, in the world of social media, like I'm so glad social media wasn't around when I was a kid.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we did some ignorant things as children, as high schoolers, and as college students.
Right.
And if social media had been around, where people were taking pictures and posting it everywhere, there's no telling. And so they're growing up in this world where it's like, no, I'm not telling you I didn't do those things. I'm telling you how much you have to be aware that
Right.
what you are doing today will follow you, can follow you the rest of your life. And so because they know my friends and they've heard the stories and they've talked to my brothers and the things that we did, they're like, but you and Casey did this. And it's like, yeah, but. And so those things really come back. It's like, here's what you need to do. You need to learn from my mistakes and my successes. And yes, we did this. No, we shouldn't have. But if we had had the tools you have in this day and age, we would have been in so much trouble had these people found out about this.
Well, and even a lot worse off or something. Yeah.
All right. And so, those things do come back as our kids get older, because they remind you that they are kind of cut from your cloth. They do have your DNA. They do have your genetics, for better or for worse. And you find yourself, teaching out of your experience, and that experience will come back for you to kind of answer to. And it's,
Yeah, this world that our kids are, this world has changed dramatically in so much. And we
Yeah.
need Jesus even more. I mean, it is crazy. So,
It is sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Someone asked me, one of the kids in our youth group asked me last night. It's like, do you really think? It's like, do you think the world is so much worse than it used to be, or are we just more aware? And I said, no. I said, I said, if you read about the world that Paul is writing to in Corinth and in Galatia, it's a pretty rotten world. If you go through history and you see the things that transpired in ancient cultures, humanity has always been messed up, a crooked and depraved generation. The difference is our news cycle is like a 2-hour news cycle. And, you used to know what was going on in your own people, with your own friends and your own school and maybe your own town 2 or 3 days later when it came out in the newspaper. Now then, you know exactly what happens moments after it happens, because it spreads like wildfire. And sometimes that happens a world away.
we were in Oregon, and at like 2 a.m., these two motorcyclists just blazing 120, 130, right by the house, and then we just hear a mess of sirens, and instantly my mother gets on Oregon City Chit Chat. And
Right,
I mean,
right.
instantly there's like, a news article, a wild motorcycle chase going through Oregon City, heading towards Canby, all this information, all this news, like it's instant. That's kind of an idea, and so it's, and we followed it all week. Like that was like kind of like our excitement for the week, because we had heard them a couple times, and they caught one and they didn't catch the other one, but the other one was still zipping and riding, and they were still laying and trying to trap them. And but we instantly were like on the chit chat,
Right.
on the news, trying to figure it out. So it's
Well,
incredible.
And
the
something will
amount
happen, and I will immediately go to YouTube to say, hey, and I'll say, chick, 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 just see if it's there.
Right.
And most of the time it is, even though it's happened like minutes ago. Somebody's
Right.
already got it, recorded, clipped it, and shared it to YouTube. So, so fast.
So fast. Well, do you have a behind the beards moment, or are we gonna make this
behind the
like
beards
Christmas
moment?
and wrap it up?
I think so. I'd say, man, for ministers out there, I said, listen when your teaching comes back.
Yeah.
That don't be resistant to it. I try to resist it. Like even yesterday when you and I were talking, I knew where I was coming from, and you come back with that, hey, you got to celebrate what's in front of you. Don't worry about what's not. You can't change that. I'm like, well, so I'm, and the truth is you can do both, but, I'm trying to do that to make it sound better for me.
Yeah.
And to make it feel better instead of saying, no, you're right. While I do it, I probably don't do it well enough or I wouldn't be so focused on the things that kind of give me heartburn. So,
Yeah.
when you receive that to come back to you, take a moment, embrace the difficulty that comes from having your teaching slap you back in the face,
Yeah.
and ask yourself, what is God trying to teach me through my own teaching?
Yeah.
If you have a minister or a teacher who is going through something and their teaching is different from that, understand that teaching is coming from sometimes our failures and our flaws as well as our successes. And don't be afraid to kind of bring that back to us and ask questions about it, but do it in a gentle way that is kind of a reminder of what it is that we're here for, and that's to grow and mature together. And we do our best to live the right life, but we're imperfect people.
It's also not I caught you moment.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we got to get out of that spirit of, I caught you in it. You're not doing what you taught. But in a,
right.
Because that's such a toxic attitude. Like, why are we so toxic? Like, do we not all want to get to heaven? Yeah, it's a race, but it's not one that you win and hope that everyone else loses.
Right.
It's one that you want everybody to finish the race. And so, like, stop kicking people in the shins and tripping them. Like, it's not that kind of race, man.
Yeah, it's more like a team relay, right? Where we're
it's not how fast you get there; it's how many people you bring with you.
Yeah.
So, well, it's amazing you bring up that conversation we had the other day, and I always laugh when you're like, "Oh man, that's what I needed," and I'm like, "Cool, man." I was talking to myself, but I'm glad you got something out of it because we were talking about I struggle with that all the time, celebrating people, celebrating the ones who are there and wanting to and show up and pouring into them and discipling them.
Yeah,
it's important. There's an episode there.
There is.
But we want to thank you guys for being here today. We also want to remind you of Galatians 6:9. Oh man, because we need this. Do not grow weary in doing good. Do something good. This world is messy. This life is messy. So allow Jesus Christ, our Savior, to do something different, to use you to do something different today. Do something good in His name. I'm Aaron, and that's Josh, and we'll see you next week on Behind the Beards.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
Hey, and since they haven't made us brand ambassadors yet, I'll give them some run in the post-show credits. Just ordered some Sunday Cool T-shirts for my campus ministry program. So
did you? I just ordered some Sunday Cool T-shirts. Right here. Boop. Boop. Got some heavy lifting shirts. So got Jesus who's spotting our guy. I think the only thing that we want to change is maybe see if we can get the lifter's head outside of Jesus's skirt. Just because, we got some junior high boys.
Well, here is...
That's it. Did you see that Sunday Cool does stickers?
Yeah, they're sending me some campus ministry stickers.
Right.
They're not sending them to me.
You purchased them. Yeah, I'm gonna get some Behind the Beard ones.
I'm down.
But I want to design. I'm gonna have Lauren design and take our design and do behind the beards and put our dude. Those are sick. That's cool.
Yeah, so that's the front.
Well, you have Chad.
That's the front, and then that's the tag on the back. So it's up in
Yeah.
the back corner. And the stickers look like they come out really cool. They'll be purple instead of this mauve color,
Mauve.
but with that little faded tiger in the background. It's like, yeah, man,
Yeah, that looks
Down.
tight. Those look great.
77 cents a piece if you order 100 of them. Like,
They're so cheap.
yeah,
Like that's actually like a really good price on stickers. They're not
is.
overpriced stickers at all. And I'm not just saying that. Like it's pretty good. I know. I almost thought about. I'm still doing them. I might just order some of these heavy lifting stickers. I think that'd be kind of cool.
yeah, it's a pretty cool design. Heavy lifting with Ephesians. What's it?
Ephesians 1:17.
Nice.
1:17.
All right, man.
So-
Nice little post show notes there. We'll end this here and
Post
then we can pray.
show Sunday cool.